We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, verse number 29. Status Q, Chapter 20, Vidra's conversation between Maitreya. Conversation between Vidra and Maitreya, verse number 29. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Nishtiki Namagnanatimrandasya Gnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkapatamam Vande Sri Gurum Devatarinam Paramanandamadavam Sri Chaitanya वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं स्वरूपगोस्वामी रूपादि की जय शुभपाद की जय गौर भक्तवृंद की जय तां क्वनच्चरणाम्बोजां मदविह्वललोचनां काञ्चीकलापविलसद्दुकूलचन्नरोदसम् तां क्वनच्चरणाम्बोजां मदविह्वललोचनां काञ्चीकलापविलसद्दुकूलचन्नरोदसम् Canto 3, Chapter 20, verse 29. तां कनचरणाम्बोजां मधुविह्वललोचनां काञ्चीकलापविलसद्दुकूलचन्नरोदसम् तां, that body, tinkling with ankle bell, charanambojam with lotus feet, mada intoxication, vihmala overwhelmed, lochanam with eyes, kanchi kalapa with a girdle made of golden ornament, vilasat shining, dukula by fine cloth, channa covered, rodasam having hips. Translation by Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Gopala Gopal Ki Jai. The body given up by Brahma took the form of evening twilight. When the day and night meet, a time which kindles passion. The asuras, who are passionate by nature, dominated as they are by the element of rajas, took it for a damsel whose lotus feet, surrounded with tinkling of anklets, whose eyes were wide with intoxication, and whose hips were covered by fine cloth over which shone a girdle. Please repeat. The body given up by Brahma took the form of evening twilight, and the day and night meet, a time which kindles passion. The asuras, who are passionate by nature, dominated as they are the element of rajas, took it for a damsel whose lotus feet resounded with tinkling of anklets, whose eyes were wide with intoxication, whose hips were covered by fine cloth, over which shone girdle, purported by Popa. As early morning is the period for spiritual cultivation, the beginning of evening is the period for passion. Demoniac men are generally very fond of sex enjoyment. Therefore, they very much appreciate the approach of evening. The demons took approach of evening twilight to be a beautiful woman, and they began to adore her in various ways. They imagined the twilight to be a very beautiful woman with tinkling and bangles on her feet, a girdle on her hips, and beautiful breasts, and for their sexual satisfaction, they imagined the appearance of this beautiful girl before them. So, from this verse, we can see that Lord Brahma had already given up. This is the Vidra and Maitreya's conversation, where it is mentioned the Sota Goswami is explaining to Saunaka and other Rishi. They are asking about what were the questions asked by Vidra and Maitreya. So Sota Goswami explaining to Saunaka, Muni and other Rishis, and then within that parallel, Vidra is asking question to Maitreya, where Vidra is asking, since you know of matters inconceivable to us, tell me, O holy sage, what did Brahma do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis, the progenitors of living beings. Vijaya inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such progenitors of living entities as Maricha and Swayambhu, create according to the instructions of Brahma? And how did they evolve this manifested universe? Then Lord Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus: My Lord, please protect me from the sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by appetite of sex and have come to attack me. My Lord, you are the only one capable of ending affliction, of the distress and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet. The Lord, who can distinctly see the minds of others, perceived Brahma's distress and said to him, Cast off this impure body of yours. Thus commanded by the Lord, Brahma cast off his body. So we can see Lord Brahma before, as he has a great responsibility. So he has taken responsibility without any deviation. So there is the first and foremost lesson we're getting. Then he has given up the body once already, where the Akshas and Rakshasas, in the form of night, they have taken shelter, and he has given up, cast off that body. That means that mentality, that subtle mind intelligence, that conception, that activity. He doesn't want to do it anymore. So he gave that up, that consciousness. So then he created demigods, and daytime was given to them. Then the second scenario, second time again. So in the first scenario, we had explained before that it is we should be ready to make the change, just like Lord Brahma has made change in his consciousness because he had to create demigods. So we might have performed some simple activities, some religious activities, something bad. So, but we have to realize that and then ready to make the change, ready to take feedback, ready to listen, ready to hear, ready to follow the sadhu and shastra and guru. Then follow the instructions. No one is born from. Sometimes we get, oh, I can chant. I'm so simple. When Lord asked me to chant, no, everybody has to start somewhere. Start with one round of chanting and start taking. And I'm going to temple, take darshan of the Lord, and attending the arati, attending the kirtan, and associate with these devotees. This is what is will help us to move from the lower modes. As morning is cultivation, that's why we should try to attend once in few months or once a month. Attend Mangalarti, and especially on the festival days. As for Lord Nityan Trayodis is coming up, February 2nd, Thursday. Very, very important day to attend Mangalarti and take darshan of the Lord, sincerely pray for His mercy. So by that, we'll be able to cast off this. So we'll be able to make progress, make change in our lifestyle, in our activities. Otherwise, it's very difficult. As you can see, second time Lord Brahma himself is praying because this time demons earlier cast off in his body that mentality, that consciousness is from Akshas and Rakshasas, which became night. Now this is twilight. It's a mode of passion. The demons has to this. So what does it mean? So in this case, basically this mentality, this consciousness is representing is unrestricted attachment. Viroda Yukta Priti. Prabhupada talks about Viroda Yukta Priti, unrestricted attachment, which is causing unregulated. So that's why there should be a regulation. As in Bhagavad Gita, we see that Yuktahara Viharasya Yukta Chetasya Karmasu Swapna Avabodhasya. The eating, sleeping, mating, defending, everything must be regulated. There is no regulation unrestricted. That's what we can see from immediately as soon as Parikshit Maharaj is about to die, when he assembled, when he submitted to Sukadeva Goswami, please tell me what not to do, what to do. And then Sukadeva Goswami, first thing he mentioned, yes, you have 100 things to hear, reading newspapers, watching TV, and whatnot, but people are not ready to hear about the actual real beneficial to the living entity. Srotavyadini Rajendra Nunam Santi Sahasrasa Apasyatam Atmatattvam Gruheshu Gruhamedina. So he already seen father and grandfather and previous forefathers passed away, but he's not seeing that he also has to give up this body and take up another body. So from his past life or activities, he has entered into this particular family, this particular friend, and this particular kids and all. According to his previous activities, he entered into that particular uh, life. So particular ears, eyes, nose, everything is nothing is by chance. So we should understand carefully. Shastra again and again explain Karanam Gunasanga Sad Asad Janma Yonishu. Because of our activities only, we have received certain type of body, we have received certain type of wife and kids, and how we appear, how we look, the eyes, the nose, everything is based on what activities we have done. And within these Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas, so Jnanendriyas are the ears, the eyes, the nose, the tongue, so the mouth, and then the tongue, the ears, the eyes, the nose, the tongue, and the skin, the touch. So these are the five jnanendriyas, knowledge acquiring senses, and then karmendriyas, hands, legs. More important is jnanendriyas, and then little lesser degree is karmendriya, which is hands, legs, mouth, and, genitals, and then evacuation. These five are karmendriyas. So that's why Shastra is explaining. Sotram, Chakshu, Sparsanam, Granam, Nevacha, Adhishtaya, Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Mind is the center of these eyes, ears, these Jnanendriyas, Sotram, Chakshu, Sparsanam, the subtle, these senses, these knowledge acquiring, and it has subtle aspect. Rupa, Gandha, Shabda. So, like eyes as vision is subtle, the ears is the sound is subtle, Shabda. Gandha, sweat, the skin is the touch, so nose is the smell, the gandha, rupa, rasa, gandha, like that. So these subtle objects, it is attached, already coming. As soon as we are born, we are coming with these jnanendriyas, have attached to the subtle impression which is there stored in the mind, the subtle body. Within the mind, these five knowledge acquiring senses and the karma, they have attachment to certain things based on past activities. That's why we have to purify this. Utkramantam stham va bunjanam va gunanvitam. Vimudhanam pasyanti jnana. We are not able to see. We are trying, we are thinking that we are enjoying, but rather actually we are becoming more and more conditioned. Our future, we are making another life future already based on our activities. That's why we have to use this free will very carefully. That's why we have to take the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as it is mentioned. Chaitanya Charanamboja Makaranda Liho Bhaje Esham Prasada Matrena Pamaro Api Amaro Bhavet. We shouldn't be aggrieved, but we should be positive reflection and then take shelter of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Let me offer my respectful obeisance unto the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Simply by the causeless mercy of the devotees engaged in licking honey from his lotus feet, even a fallen soul becomes eternally liberated. Parimita Parimala Vasita Bhuvana Swa Rasona Rasonmadita Rasana Rolambam Giridhara Charanamboja Kalu Rasika Samihate Hatum. Realized devotees are like bumblebees, maddened by their own mellows of Krishna's lotus feet. The scent of that lotus feet perfumes the entire world. Who is the realized soul who could give them up? So that's why one must take this shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially has come to give his mercy in the form of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri, so that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mentioning everything is there. That's why chanting the Mahamantra has full potency. Nam Nam Akar Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti Tatrarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etadrasi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mama Vidurdaiva Midrasi Ihajani Nanurag. So he has put all the potencies in this chanting of the holy name of the Lord. By taking shelter of the holy name, by regularly chanting, we'll be able to become purified of this process, purified of this viroda yukta priti, unrestricted attachment, and then that is causing the viroda yukta krodha. The anger, frustration, fear, lamentation is coming from this unrestricted attachment, unregulated attachment. So that's why Mother Devahuti is instructing, is asking instruction from Kapila, his own son, that as soon as his husband, her husband Kardamun left after producing nine children, or so I think nine daughters. then Mother Devhuti is submitting because she didn't take fully shelter of, she didn't ask for spiritual questions, or she didn't ask how to be liberated, how to delivered, how to purify herself. She should have taken more time to ask these questions on what is the process and how to do it, but she didn't ask. So that's why she is submitting to her son now. I'm very sick of disturbance of my material senses, but because of this sense disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into abyss of ignorance. Nirvinna netram bhuman asad indriya tarshanat ena sambhavyamanena prapanna andam tama prabho. So, as this is a material world is described as a darkness of ignorance, that's why it says tamasoma jyotirgmaya. One must move to the light from this darkness by taking shelter of the chanting of the holy name and shelter of the supreme Lord. So that's what is been explained here. So same way, so that's why one must uh, otherwise, we are the Vedic literature, Vedic instruction is mentioning asat indriya priti. So, therefore, Shastra says human life should be considered whether we shall spoil our life simply for sense gratification or there is some other business. So that's why that is tapasya. Obviously, austerity, tolerate. It's not easy. So we should restrict this, regulated or unregulated. So that's why again and again in Bharatmala's Lord Rishabhadev is instructing all his sons. Tapo divyam putraka yena suddhyet sattvam brahma sokyam yanta. We want to purify your existence, then you must take to the process of tapasya, tapo divyam. What is that tapasya? Tapasya is for realization of God. And then we shall be purified. What is the meaning to purify? Purification means we are eternal. If we become purified from this material contamination, then we can get back to our eternal life, back to Godhead. Otherwise, Nayam Deho Dehvajam Rudoke Kastan Kaman Rahati Vidbudambe. So if we are not regulating, then that means we don't know what kind of life. We may get lower species of life in the. So that's why we must engage in this because there is no otherwise. There is no end to this itching sensation of sense pleasures of sukham atyantikam yattat atindriya grahyam. So, because actual real happiness you get by utilizing these indriyas, the senses, this gross body, karmendriyas and jnanendriyas especially, by engaging in savanam and kirtan, atindriya grahyam. So, in order to get the real ultimate happiness, sukham atyantikam, what we get is nothing compared to the spiritual happiness. Only when we follow the process, then we will realize that. Until that, it becomes difficult to comprehend what kind of happiness we get. So that's why Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami explaining to Parikshit Maharaj about this process of how this material world and is comparing here. When Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami about this material world, Sukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, a man belonging to the mercantile community as always interested in earning money, sometimes he enters the forest to acquire some cheap commodities like wood and earth and sell them in the city at good prices. Similarly, conditioned soul, being greedy, enters the material world for some material profit. Gradually enters the deepest part of the forest, not really knowing how to get out. Having entered the material world, the pure soul becomes conditioned by material atmosphere, which is created by the external energy under the control of Lord Vishnu. Thus, the living entity comes under the control of the external energy, the EV Maya, living independently and bewildered in the forest. He does not attain the association of devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Lord. Once in the bodily conception, he gets different types of bodies one after another under the influence of material energy and impelled by the modes of material nature. Sattva, Rajas, Tamo, Guna, as in this verse, Lord Brahma, we see that passion. So, in this way, the conditioned soul goes sometimes to the heavenly planet, sometimes to the earthly planet, sometimes to the lower planet, lower space. Thus, he suffers continuously due to different types of bodies. These sufferings and pains are sometimes mixed, sometimes they are very severe, sometimes they are not. These bodily conceptions are required due to the conditioned soul's mental speculation. He uses his mind and five senses to acquire knowledge. As I mentioned, this knowledge acquiring senses are the key. So that's why hearing and chanting is probably the most important. The ears must be utilized because any other sense may not work while sleeping also, but ear will work. So that's why the chanting of the holy name and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and the association of devotees, the very, very important process we have to cultivate this habit in the morning itself. Somehow or the other, we have to somehow or the other make to that. Even though it's difficult to wake up, but we should practice it by associating with those who are practicing. Then, by in their association, we'll be able to do it. Otherwise, it's difficult to do. Just like friends want to go to movie, from want to go to party or restaurant, then they all go together. So somebody is there motivating and inspiring. Same way, so we want to be inspired to wake up, inspired to hear, inspired to move, transform our heart. Then we must associate with those. We must make friends and associate with those who are following the process. So we also get motivated. We get inspired by their association, by serving those devotees, serving Lord and Sri Prabhupada, then we'll be able to get motivated. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult, because these dull senses cannot move to the asat indriya to sat, the eternal aspect. It can move. So that's why here in this case, Uday Goswami explained, these bring about the different bodies and different conditions. Using the senses under the control of external energy Maya, the living entity suffers the miserable condition of material existence. He is actually searching for relief, but he is generally baffled. Although sometimes relieved after great difficulty, struggling for existence in this way, he couldn't get shelter of pure devotees, who are like bumblebee is engaged in the loving service at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So that's why we have to take the shelter of the great devotees of the Lord. Mahi yaso padarajo abhishekam nishkinchana namna pranita yavat. So one must be developing the higher taste, then only you can give up. Otherwise, it's very difficult to give up. So that is the first instruction Lord is giving to Arjuna. देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति तथा देहान धीरा. That means one must be sober. So this is the prayojana. They finish this material business, completely prepare for going back home, back to Godhead. So that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very strict, instructing Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanonmukasya. Bhagavad Bhajan. Param Param Jigamishor Bhavasagarasya. Bhagavad Bhajan means devotional service to the Lord. Going to the other side of the material ocean. So one who is serious about going to the other side of the material ocean, two things are very dangerous. Vishreinam sandarshanam mata yoshitam cha ahanta ahanta vishabhakshano api asadu. Most heinous activities than drinking poison. What are those? Vishreinam sandarshanam, mixed with, intimately mixing with people who wants to eat, cow's flesh and whatnot, and then mixing with those who are engaged in illicit religious activity associated with women and for other purposes, yoshita. So, because of that, that those are two things are condemned. Unless one becomes dhira, you cannot do that. Otherwise, we have to finish this business of material sensuous engagement and become dhira. So then we are fit candidates for going back to home, back to Godhead. So that's why we have to get higher taste. Param društva nivartate. Otherwise, there is no possibility. By developing attachment to the Lord, that's why Lord is called Madana Moha. Madana means Cupid, and Cupid is enchanting everyone. Madana Mohan. Krishna is Madana, he enchants Cupid. So Radharani is Madana Mohan Mohini. She enchants even Krishna, Madana Mohan Mohini. So that's why by taking shelter of the most beautiful, enchanting form of the Lord, by attending the Arati, by being in the Kirtan, by seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, then automatically we will, from these lower modes, lower attractions, automatically we'll be able to move away from that. Otherwise, very difficult. As we heard from Ajamil's case. Stambhayam atman atmanam yavat sattvam yathasrutam na sasaka samadhatum mano madana vepitum. His mind was so agitated. He was a great Brahmana, but he was not fully regulated in the practice consistently. Then, as soon as he saw the woman hugging and kissing and whatnot in the public, then he got agitated. The mind, mano madana vepitam. He couldn't control anymore. So, that's why we have to be very careful. Ko gruheshu puman sektam atmanam ajitendriya. So, what person is too attached to this materialistic life, to being unable to control his senses, can liberate himself because he is attached strong ropes of affection for material things and agitation, not because of three ropes together bound up. So he can get out from this. So that's why we have to follow the instruction of Shastra here, as in this verse, constantly described. By taking shelter of the Lord and taking shelter. So the in this Lord Brahma's case, being basically described, and we see that the examples of including moon god Soma, moon god, what he has done, as mentioned in the ninth canto, 14th chapter, it is mentioned. After the conquering the three worlds, upper, middle, and lower, Soma, the moon god, performed a great sacrifice known as Rajasuya sacrifice, and because he was very much puffed up, he forcibly kidnapped Brahaspati's wife, whose name was Tara. So Ayajad Rajasuyena Vijitya Bhuvan Patni Brahaspate Darpat Taram Nama Aharat Balat by forcibly because he couldn't realize because once the senses are agitated, you don't know what a person does when senses are so much agitated. यदा स देवगुरुना याचितो अभीक्षणो मदात् न अत्यजित् तत्कृते यज्ञे सर्वदानव विग्रह. Although requested again and again by Brahaspati, spiritual master demigod, Soma did not return Tara. This was due to his false pride. Consequently, a fight ensued between demons and demigods. Sukro Brahaspate Dveshad Agraha Sa Asuro Haro Guru Sutam Sneha Sarva Bhuta Ganavrata. Because of enmity between Brahaspati and Sukracharya, Sukra took the side of moon god and was joined by demons. But Lord Shiva, because of affection for the son of his spiritual master, joined the side of Brahaspati and was accompanied by all the ghosts and hobgoblins. Because Lord Shiva seems received knowledge from Angira, and Angira's son is Brahaspati. Angirasya sakshat prapto vidyo hara iti prasidadaha. Hara means Lord Shiva has received, so that's why he became compassionate to Brahaspati and he came to help him. सर्वदेव गुणोपेतो गणोपेतो महेंद्रो गुरुम अन्वयान सुरा असुर विनाशो अभूत समरस तारा कामयः. King Indra, accompanied by all the kings of demigods, kinds of demigods, joined the side of Brahaspati. Thus, there was a great fight, destroying both demons and demigods, only for the sake of Tara, Brahaspati's wife. This is what moon god. When Lord Brahma was fully informed by Angira about the entire incident, he severely chastised the moon god Soma. Thus, Lord Brahma delivered Tara to her husband, who could then understand that she was already pregnant. Brahaspati said, You foolish woman, your womb, which was meant for me to impregnate, has been impregnated with someone other than me. Immediately deliver your child, immediately deliver it. Be assured that after the child is delivered, I shall not burn you to ashes. I know that although you are unchaste, you wanted a son, therefore I shall not punish you. Sukadev Goswami further speaking, by Brahaspati, Ada Tara was very much ashamed, immediately gave birth to the child, who was very beautiful with a golden bodily hue. But both Brahaspati and moon god Soma desired that beautiful child. Fighting again broke out between Brahaspati and moon god, both of whom claimed, This is my child, not yours. All the saints and demigods present asked Tara whose child the newborn baby actually was, but because she was ashamed, she could not immediately answer. The child then became very angry and demanded that his mother immediately tell the truth. You unchaste woman, he said, what is the use of your unnecessary shame? Why do you want to not admit your fault? Immediately tell me about your faulty behavior. And Lord Brahma then brought Tara to a secluded place, and after pacifying her, he asked to whom the child actually belonged. She replied very slowly, This is the son of Soma, the moon god. Then the moon god immediately took charge of the child. O Maharaj Parikshit, when Lord Brahma saw that the child was very deeply intelligent, he gave the child the name Buddha, the moon god, the ruler of the stars, enjoyed real great jubilation because of his son. Thereafter, Buddha is the moon god. Thereafter, from Buddha, through the womb of Ila, a son was born named Pururava, great devotee of the Lord, was described in the beginning of ninth canto. His beauty, personal qualities, magnanimity, behavior, wealth, and power are described in Narada in the court of Lord Indra. The celestial woman Morosi was attached to him, pierced by the arrows of Cupid. She thus approached him. This is the Pururava's case. In this way, you can see that moon god's case. Not only that, and we see that even Brahaspati himself, the guru of demigods. So that's why anybody, it can happen to anyone. Anybody could be agitated by these idealist principles and unwarranted senses can be very much easily get affected. unless we are in the right association consistently following, especially the chanting, strong hearing and chanting. We should not give up. That is the main instruction from Lord Brahma's life. He cast staff. We'll come to that in a minute. So, as we'll see this example of Brahaspati. When the demigod named Brahaspati was attracted by his brother's wife Mamata, who at that time was pregnant, he desired to have sexual relation with her. The son within her womb forbade this, but Brahaspati cursed him and forcibly discharged semen into the womb of Mamata. Prabhupada explained this sex impulse is so strong in the material world that even Brahaspati, who is supposed to be the priest of the demigods and a very learned scholar, wanted to have sexual relation with his brother's pregnant wife. This can happen even in the society of the higher demigods. So, what to speak of human society? The sex impulse is so strong that it can agitate even a learned personality like Brahaspati. Hmm. Mamata very much feared being forsaken by her husband for giving birth to an illegitimate son, therefore, she considered giving up the child. But then the demigod solved the problem by enunciating a name for the child. So, Brahaspati said to Mamata, "You foolish woman, although the child was born from the wife of one man, though the semen discharged by another, you should maintain him." Upon hearing this, Mamata replied, "Oh, Brahaspati, you maintain him." After speaking in this way, Brahaspati and Mamata both left. Thus, the child was known as Bharadwaja. Uh, Although encouraged by the demigods to maintain the child, Mamata considered he useless because of his illicit birth, therefore she left him. Consequently, the demigods known as Maruts maintained the child, and when Maharaj Bharata was disappointed for want of a child, this child was given to him as his son. So this Bharadwaja was a great devotee of the Lord. But even though they engage it, but they are highly qualified and conscious people. So even though, so that's why we should be also careful not to laugh if somebody who's a highly elevated personality, some or the other fell, whether demigods or any other devotee, because senses can be agitated. So some accidents may happen, could happen. So we should be very careful and draw a lesson and how we should be in our life. We should be very careful, but at the same time not laugh at them, not obstruct somebody. That also we see from Sobri Muni obstructing Garuda from his activities of his eating, because Garuda is a bird, he can eat snakes and all. Then he obstructed him because of obstructing a great devotee of the Lord Vishnu's carrier is Garuda. Then immediately finished. He entered into this fruitive activity business. He got attached to seeing the fish engaging in the union, and then he went and got married. A great yogi, because of his obstruction of a devotee. Anybody who's having this, and we see that from other examples also like that, because that's why we shouldn't be become inimical to these especially exalted personalities and obstruct anybody, especially those who are dedicated their life in the service of the Lord. We shouldn't obstruct them from their activities, Krishna conscious activities. Then otherwise it can create this spiritual mentality and enjoyment mentality, and we may fall prey. Even though we might be regulated at that point, but because of that action, immediately we may fall prey in sense agitation. So that's why these instructions are there. Carefully we have to follow. So in this verse, as we can see, Lord Brahma's verse, basically in this verse, in the second time is giving up this body, and instructing his. So we should be careful, because he's not giving up his actual body. He's not giving up his responsibility. What does that mean? Like sometimes I see that car, we must body depends on this karmendriyas and jnanendriyas. Same way, this gross body, right? Subtle body is the mind and falls the same way. So we sit in the car, and the car is like a gross body, and it has the gross senses. Engine and others, and then we have four tires. So this is it has to depend. Same with the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas, especially the tongue, so, and then the ears and the eyes. All of them has subtle objects, subtle attachments already from the past life. So we should be very careful. So what it is implying when, and we should introspect. We should be seeking the guidance of Sadhu and Shastra and Guru. We have to constantly hear regularly, chanting and hearing from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Atmano Kavayo Saiva Sadhu Sukra Mokshadaram Apavatam. Only by hearing and the association of devotees regularly and chanting the holy name and hearing and reading from this Shastra, then we'll be able to cut these knots. Unwanted agitation will be cut. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be regulated consistently. So that's why when imagine one tire is punctured, So, as per so many places, puncture in multiple places, then you have to take the mechanic. Then the whole tire has to be replaced. You cannot do yourself. So that means when we are agitated, when we are in the materialistic life, when we are impure from the previous conditioning, when we are not able to wake up, not able to chant, not able to take up devotional practices. That's why we have to take Krishna Prasadam. We have to be in the association of devotees regularly. I know very difficult in this Kali Yuga, so with job and home and so many responsibilities. We shouldn't give up responsibility, but rather we should try to somehow or the other see and plan. So at least, if not weekday, then weekend. So and every day one must. But these two things. Otherwise, there are 64 items. Nectar devotion talks about so many items for discharging devotions or executing devotions. Chapter number 6 or 7, Nectar devotion part 1. Out of all that we may not be able to do. So that's why when you take, especially when we are when the puncture happens, then you take to the mechanic. So then he does inspection of those things, where then he'll fix it and replace it. So that's why we need somebody which is especially so Prabhupada's spiritual master is that person who can fix. And then this chanting and hearing and chanting is the process which can help to fix. So when we take to 21-point inspection or we go to doctor, he may give list of things, problems, cholesterol, triglycerides and whatnot, and sugar and BP and whatnot. Out of that, immediate danger, immediate things we have to fix. The change in consciousness, change in lifestyle. Immediately we'll do that because we are afraid of things. We are afraid we are going to we are in problem in health. So that's why we take. But here we don't become afraid to take up this process because we think we take it very lightly. When the death will come, we don't know when death will come. It could be days, it could be months, and it could be a few years, it could be next day. No one knows. Parikshit Maharaj 7 days was given, but it was not given. It is not written like that. For us, we are not been warranted like that. So that's why have to take it very carefully. So this 21-point inspection, out of that, you may give 10 many things to be fixed, but immediately something like the brakes has to be fixed. If it is in point 0.01, then you have to fix it, replace the brakes immediately. So otherwise, it can be danger because if the brake and the pad and the rims are touching, then it can brakes won't work even though you press the brake. So same way when this agitation is there, so that's why we must detect what the main problems are. That's why out of these 64 items, at least the chanting and hearing must go on every day, very consistently with intensity. So immediately we have to fix this problem. So by just like we are taking to the mechanic, but otherwise you drive. What is the problem? I can enjoy nicely, and you can say that if you drive the car when the tire is punctured, all these many holes, and you drive the car on the tire, what will happen? So it will completely, but then whole tire has to be replaced. So that means we have to understand that. So more we engage, continuously enjoy like this, our lifespan is reduced. Especially based on what has been described, these demons are attracted by this union. Then that actually Shastra says that reduces the lifespan. More we are engaged in these activities, it reduces the lifespan. So then we have to get, so that means as we have to replace this one tire, whole tire, because we are not seeing the holes, we are not seeing this agitation, we're not taking up the process of chanting and hearing, spiritual emancipation, spiritual process to transform, then we'll have to give up this body and take up another body very soon because of this. As it's so many holes, so much sinful activity is accumulated, then we can't maintain this body anymore. Our life will be reduced, short lifespan will be reduced, then we have to give up this life. So that's why we have to be afraid. As we become afraid and we realize that oh, tire has to be immediately we buy the tire and put it new tire. So, but in our lost body, when we give up, then at the time it's too late. And so that's why we have to use very careful this life because life and it's too short. Already many years passed by, so we should use carefully. And we can learn these lessons from Gopala Bhatta Goswami's case, as I mentioned. Mahaprabhu met Sri Gopal. Today is Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami's appearance day and Krishna, Sri Ramachandra Kaviraj's disappearance day. And let's hear from the Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Kavi Karnapur is describing. sorry, Narhar Chakravarti Thakur is described. Mahaprabhu met Sri Gopal Bhatta in South India. I shall summarize the history of Gopal Bhatta's family. Sri Gopal Bhatta was the son of Sri Venkata Bhatta. Sri Venkata Bhatta lived in the south and was a renowned Brahmana scholar of all Shastras. Trimalla, Venkata, and Sri Prabodhananda were three brothers of whom Sri Gaurachandra was the very life and soul. Formerly, they were worshippers of Sri Lakshmi Narayan, but by the favor of Mahaprabhu, they later became great devotees of Radha Krishna. During his visit to South India, Mahaprabhu Gaurahari spent 4 happy months in the house of Bhattas. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a beautiful description of Lord's southern tour. There is no mention of Gopal Bhatta in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but his family is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 9. There is a mention of Vaishnava named Sri Venkata Bhatta. There are three brothers, the names are mentioned here. Respectfully invited to Mahaprabhu's house, he washed the feet of Lord and drank the water with all the members of his family. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami is the son of Venkata Bhatta. He also drank the water of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by association of pure devotees, by taking their remnants, by hearing from them. So immediately the purification starts. We can transform our life very, very quickly, rapidly. It was said that Gopal, the son of Venkata, became ecstatically emotional by drinking that water. Although he tried to control his body, he shivered in ecstatic love. Gopal was a beautiful young man whose complexion was as bright as golden champaka flower. His lotus-like face had large eyes and eyebrows, and his nose and forehead bore the bright tilaka of the Vaishnavas. How beautiful were his ears and neck! How beautiful were his hands, chest, and thin waist! How beautiful were his strength, knees, reddish feet! He wore bright clothes and was decorated with many ornaments. Everyone was fascinated by his ever increasing beauty and manliness. Having received Mahaprabhu, his life and soul, Gopal engaged himself most gladly in the Lord's service. This is another instruction, by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord, directly or indirectly. Pujari second initiated, they can do directly on the altar. But second, those who are not yet initiated, they can do indirectly. That means by bringing boga, by attending the arati, by offering whatever we can, the fruits or nuts, and ourselves being there, personal present, watching the arati, and offering a flower or fruit, whatever we can, and doing some service, serving prasadam, or cleaning up the temple, or whatever little service we can do, making garlands, and various things, cooking or assisting in cooking. So all these things, as you can see, Gopal Bhatta Goswami was engaged in menial service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, um, very much and very with attention, with intensity. So this is what is required. We are learning this lesson from Gopal. I worship Sri Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, who was the best of all Brahmanas, was engaged with utmost sincerity in the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am unable to describe how Gaur Hari favored Sri Gopal Bhatta. Nevertheless, I shall attempt to describe the character of Gopal, who was always engaged in service of Sri Mahaprabhu. Not satisfied to see Mahaprabhu as an ascetic, he lamented privately, addressed Providence with choked voice. Oh Providence, why was I born in this faraway place? Why have you forced me to see Mahaprabhu in the dress of an ascetic and deprived me from observing the pastimes in Nadia? How cruel you are to allow him in the life of renunciate. When I longed to see him as Vrajendranandan, the Lord of Sri Radhika, lamenting in this way, he wept like a madman, breathed heavy, the sigh as a hot as fire. Forgiving Providence, Gopal then lamented that the ill fortune was his own fault. Having spent himself in his lamentation, Gopal remained reticent. Yet Gaurhari could understand the state of Gopal's mind. When Gopal fell asleep, the Lord of Navadvip appeared to him in a dream. Lord Gaurasundar was strolling through the streets of Navadvip and Gopal was there with him. Nityananda and Advaita took him lovingly in their arms. But when they were about to tell him something, he woke up from his sleep. Gopal looked around in bewilderment and then went impatiently to find Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was delighted and revealed to himself in the form of a cowherd boy with a blue complexion. The divine beauty remained, but in a few moments, blue complexion turned gold. The glow of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's beauty enchanted the universe. How beautiful was the hair that curled across his shoulders. His forehead was decorated by Vaishnav Tilak. His eyebrows were dramatically raised. His magnificent glance stole the hearts of all the ladies. His beautiful face defeated the pride of autumn moon, and his smile showered nectar. His beautiful dhoti was wrapped with three folds and decorated with various ornaments. His gestures and postures were fascinating. The garland of malati flowers hanging round Nimai's neck enchanted Gopal. He fell at the feet of Mahaprabhu and again looked at his face with expectation. But the Lord had reassumed his ascetic form. Mahaprabhu Gaurachandra pacified Gopal and gave him direct instructions. He ordered him to go to Vrindavan as soon as possible, for there he would meet two valuable jewels, namely Rupa and Sanatan. Tell them about my desire, said Mahaprabhu. In Vrindavan, you will get many disciples all over the world, from all over the world. Having instructed Gopal, Mahaprabhu took him in his lap and soaked his body with tears from his own eyes. Mahaprabhu advised Gopal to keep the instructions confidential, not discuss them with anyone. Gopal was very happy with that. Sri Venkata Bhatta was satisfied. Seeing the sincerity with which Gopal served Sri Gauranga, he dedicated his son to gracious feet of Gaurachandra and became very truly happy. Thereafter, Gopal spent his days and nights with Sri Gaurahari. The thought that Mahaprabhu would leave their house after 4 months made the three brothers morose. Trimalla, Venkata, Sri Prabodhananda wondered how they could spend their days without Mahaprabhu. Who will joke with us? They asked each other. Who will accompany us while we bathe in the river Kaveri? Who will perform Sankirtan in the temple of Ranganatha? And who will give worthless fellows like us the gem of devotion? You can understand. By being in the Lord's presence, by being in devotees' presence, by being in Kirtan, by playing Bhajanga, playing Kartal, hearing, so automatically, so you can see the result. Without Mahaprabhu's presence, these crowds will all disperse, and the holy place shall be vacant. Though tears streamed silently down their faces, they did not disclose their worries to anyone. At the end of scheduled 4 months, when Mahaprabhu actually left their houses, they cried out in despair. As the Lord left their house, the Bhattas fell on the ground at his feet. Mahaprabhu pacified three brothers by embracing them affectionately. After pacifying Gopal, Mahaprabhu continued on his southern tour. At last, he reached Nilachal, where he met his associate devotee. He visited Gauda and Vrindavan, where he also met many of his devotees. The great ascetic Sri Krishna Chaitanya gratified the Kali Yuga with the help of his devotees. Wherever he went, he informed his devotees that he had decided to stay in Nilachal. But in South India, Sri Venkata Bhatta and his two brothers grew morose because of separation from Sri Chaitanya. In the absence of his master, Sri Gopal's state of mind was beyond description. He reflected on that moment of separation when Mahaprabhu had assured him that his desires would soon be fulfilled. He thought of Mahaprabhu's promise to take him to Vrindavan. Gopal remained absorbed in the love of Sri Gauranga, and his fame in explaining devotion doctrines began to spread throughout the country. His pleasure was derived from spreading the glories of Sri Gauranga and defeating the views of illusionists. Educated people eulogized Gopal Bhatta and wondered how he had gained so much knowledge so easily. Somebody said the credit goes to Sri Prabodhananda. Prabodhananda is one of his brothers. No, one of his uncle, because three brothers out of Venkata Bhatta and Trimalla and Prabodhananda. And so he got initiated from Prabodhananda Saraswati, who has educated him since his child. No one can match the learning of Sri Gopal, who has certainly gained his knowledge through the honest efforts of his uncle. Somebody said, because of his vast learning, Prabodhananda has earned the title Saraswati. Whether awake or sleeping, he never thinks of anyone but his Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. According to Haribhakta Vilas, Gopal Bhatta, the disciple of Sri Prabodhananda and favorite devotee of Lord Sri Gaurasundar, is compiling the book Sri Haribhakta Vilas, having satisfied Sri Raghunath Das and Dropa and Sanatan. Renounced in worldly matters, Sri Gopala Bhatta was both affectionate and poetic. He was an expert in singing, playing musical instrument, and dancing. The book of the verses compiled by Gopala Bhatta, for which Prabodhananda should be given first credit, enchanted both the readers and the listeners. In this way, everyone praised Sri Prabodhananda and Gopal, his nephew, who was highly learned and also kind-hearted. Gopal took serious responsibility in looking after his parents, who were always satisfied with him. Once a Brahmana told Sri Venkat Bhatta, "You must be proud to be father of a son who is illustrious in every way. I have never seen such a deep devotion as your son exhibits, nor such submission towards parents." Venkat Bhatta was delighted to tell the Brahmanas about Gopal's lifelong endurance to be a great man. Gopal had eagerly anticipated seeing Lord Jagannath in Nilachal, and at the same time he was interested in learning Vyakarana and other scriptures. So Venkata Bhatta also told the Brahmana how his son Gopal had shown sincerity in serving Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the absolute being. The Brahmana enjoyed the stories about Gopal and admired Sri Venkata Bhatta for being the happy father of such a fine son. Thereafter, Brahmana returned home. The parents of Gopal were certainly fortunate to have a son who had fully dedicated himself to the gracious feet of Sri Chaitanya. They gladly permitted their son to go to Vrindavan, and thereafter they uttered the name of Mahaprabhu and left the world forever. After some time, Gopal met Rupa and Sanatan in Vrindavan. Although Sri Krishna Chaitanya was in Nilachal at the time, being God himself, he could understand that Gopal had gone to Vrindavan. One day he left the house of Mishra and went to meet Gopinath and Gadadhar. The attraction Gaurachandra felt towards Gadadhar was a precious emotion, only a vastly fortunate man could have deserved. Similarly, the depth of friendship between Nityananda and Gadadhar was beyond ordinary comprehension. Descriptions of the interactions between Gadadhar and Advaita used to give a sense of some soothing relief to those who heard them. Srivas Pandit always admired Sri Pandit Gadadhar and considered him more dear than his own life. No one could understand what happiness lay in the relation between Haridas Pandit and Gadadhar Prabhu. Nor could they grasp what sort of loving love prevailed between Gadadhar Pandit and Gadadhar Das. No human being exists who can adequately describe the loving relationship between Gadadhar and his Lord Sri Gaurasundar. In the house of Gadadhar, Mahaprabhu and his devotees used to take their seats. Only the most fortunate could witness the beautiful scene. The great ascetic Mahaprabhu Gaur Rai softly spoke his mind to the devotees. I feel concerned because I have not received uh, any news from the Vraja for a long time. He told the devotees he wanted to send some letters to Vrindavan, but as he spoke, a letter arrived from Rupa and Sanatan in Vraja, giving news of Gopal Bhatta's arrival there. In his enthusiasm over the letter, Mahaprabhu began to describe Gopala to his devotees. During my southern tour, I had the pleasure of staying at the house of Venkata Bhatta. There I met Sri Bhatta's son Gopal, who had already proven himself a great scholar of all scriptures. With the permission of his father, Gopal gladly served me with great sincerity. Lord Krishna had been kind to him. He has now gone to live in Vrindavan. Rupa and Sanatan very dear to me, and they sent me a letter as soon as Gopal arrived there. So that's why we should also regularly write letter if you're in it to spiritual master, giving the updates of what activities, what we are engaged on. Disciples of Srila Prabhupada used to write to Srila Prabhupada once a year or more often. Mahaprabhu's devotees were happy to hear the Lord relate his story. Lord praised Rupa and Sanatan and then sent them his reply. He wrote, I am glad to hear of Gopal's arrival in Vrindavan. You should accept him as your own brother. Continue to send me letters from time to time informing me of your welfare and activities. The book that you have already written, those you are certainly currently writing, will later be well accepted by the world. The person who will help to circulate all books had now arrived by the wish of Lord Krishna, because Gopal Bhatta Goswami's famous disciple Srinivas Acharya, who brought actually all the books. Today we have so many books, Chaitanya Charitamrita and so many other books, because they are the ones who brought, after writing by six Goswamis, Srinivas Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamanand Pandit are the blood. That's why Mahaprabhu is giving, foretelling this thing. Mahaprabhu ordered a person to take letter and many clothes for his Vrindavana disciple and leave without delay for Vraja. When the courier met the Goswamis in Vrindavana, he delivered the doras, copines, and other outer garments along with the letter. I dare not attempt to describe how joyfully the Goswamis received the gifts and letters from Mahaprabhu. Another instruction. So, how to always exchange gifts with devotees. You can buy what Sri Prabhupada and Supreme Lord, Lord Jagannath, Lord Krishna, Lord Gaurnitai. You should buy something, jewelry, whatever we can buy. So and exchange the same way we can buy for the devotees. It doesn't need to be expensive, but this is by loving reciprocation. We do with kids and we do with grandparents. So like that, because this is what will help in progress. Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan lovingly accepted Sri Gopala as their brother. An internal revelation helped Gopal identify Sanatan Goswami at once. Sri Sanatan Goswami described the book Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas to Gopal. While listening to the book, Gopal harbored a secret desire to serve the deity of the Lord. One night in a dream, Sri Govindadev told Rupa about Rupa Goswami, about Gopal's desire. Uncle, under Sri Rupa's affectionate guidance, Gopal learned to serve Sri Radha Raman. This subject will be described later. But for now, I'll say that Gopal's effort in serving the Lord was very sincere. So he liked to spend his days with Rupa and Sanatan, discussing the loving pastime of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Sri Gopal's heart was filled with love for Sanatan, while a deep friendship grew between him and Sri Rupa. But above all the relationship, Sri Bhatta released his absorption in the service of Radha Raman. By dint of his knowledge and devotion, Gopal could satisfy anyone's desire, and he soon became dear to everyone in Vrindavan. Previous authorities have said, I pay my tribute to Sri Gopal, but who became satisfied by the love and friendship of Sanatan and Rupa Goswami, constantly remained absorbed in the service of Sri Radharaman. Some have tried to describe the activities of Gopal, but many have failed. Whoever tries to debate the deep-rooted significance of his life will be plagued by guilt. Even the former great poets have failed to describe the whole life and activity of Gopal, but I hope that I will be able to describe it later, but not now. In this way, you can see the great description of this Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta, a remarkable person on the path of pure devotion, performed many supernatural activities. At a much later time, Srinivasa met him and got his desires fulfilled. On the order of Mahaprabhu, Srinivas Acharya took his initiation from Gopala Bhatta and later propagated the Goswami scriptures to Gauda. In Gauda, Mahaprabhu empowered Sri Rupa and others to write and compile scriptures on Vaishnava religion. For the propagation of those scriptures, he empowered Srinivasa Acharya and Sri Thakur Mahajan Narottam Das Thakur were of the same soul in their devotion to Mahaprabhu. Narottam Das Thakur had revealed the powers of both Rupa Goswami Sanatana and Srinivas in these slokas. Slokas by Narottam Das Thakur. When shall I be able to find Sri Chaitanya Dev, the ocean of kindness, within the range of my vision? His aim was to create many Vaishnava scriptures through the intellect of Sri Rupa and others to later disseminate the scriptures to the people of the world through the efforts of Srinivas. We can see in this way Srinivas Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamanand Pandit bringing these all these Vaishnava literature to Gaudadesh by their efforts. Now about Ramachandra Kaviraj, we'll describe further also the as I mentioned, yeah, further. Previously, I told you that in 20th day on the month of Vaishakha, you'll obtain wonderful association. The devotees will reach Vrindavan today, and after meeting him, you will become very happy. At that time of Arati of Govinda Dev, when the crowd is thin, you should search for him. His complexion is like golden champaka flower. He is very thin. He is hanging, tears constantly from his eyes. In great pain, he left Gouda and he has already gotten the news of our disappearance. He decided to give up his life, but we appeared him to console with him. We appeared before him to console him. We cannot describe his affection, but when you see him, you will understand you should arrange his initiation from Gopal Bhatta. This is about Srinivas Acharya going to Gauda. By that time, Rupa and Sanatan left. So Gopal Bhatta is there. So that's why Jiva Goswami is there. That is the description. When his study is completed, give him all the books. Send him to Gauda Desh, where he will distribute the transcendental jewels of literature to the masses. What more can we tell about him? Through this, Srinivas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will perform many activities. So this is Rupa and Sanatan describing to Jiva and Gopal Bhatta in a dream. They are ordering. So that's how Gopal Bhatta initiated Srinivasa Acharya. After instructing Sri Jiva Goswami, they appeared to Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami. You, Srinivasa, has come from Gauda, but his suffering is beyond description. Accept him as your disciple. Then Sri Rupa Sanatan disappeared. In the early morning, Gopal Bhatta awoke and cried out the names of Rupa and Sanatan. At that very moment, Sri Jiva Goswami arrived there. And Gopal Bhatta controlled himself. Sri Jiva Goswami bowed at the feet of Gopal Bhatta with tears in his eyes, and Gopal Bhatta embraced Sri Jiva Goswami in deep emotion. He soaked Jiva with tears from his eyes, and both of them broke down in emotion, crying. They discussed the instruction they had gotten in the dream, but the state of the mind at that time is beyond my ability to describe. After some time, Gopal Bhatta checked himself, composed himself, and composed Sri Jiva after much consolation. Jiva Goswami offered his obeisance to Gopal, but Goswami returned to his village in anxious anticipation of Srinivasa's arrival, and he began to tell everyone about the event. He waited eagerly for Srinivas, and from time to time he looked down the path, hoping for his arrival. So now we can see that Srinivas Acharya arrived along with Jiva Goswami, and we can see the beautiful deity description also. So that has been described here. Meeting with Srinivas, Gopal Bhatta. After consoling Srinivas, Jiva took him directly to meet Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Sri Gopal Bhatta was sitting in a quiet place crying miserably. Srinivas lost control of himself and fell on the ground in the front of Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Tears flowed constantly from his eyes. He offered obeisances while Jiva Goswami introduced him to Gopal Bhatta. Although Gopal was burning in fire of separation, he became joyful upon seeing Srinivas. He affectionately placed his feet on the head of Srinivas and asked him to sit down. He inquired about the different types of news. Srinivas described everything from beginning to end, but hearing the news, Gopal Bhatta again became morose. He told Srinivas about the instructions he had received from Rupa and Sanatan in his dream, and he praised Srinivas' good fortune. Jiva Goswami also began to speak about Srinivas. He told Gopal Bhatta that Srinivas was very eager to take initiation from him. Gopal Bhatta Goswami agreed that initiation would be held on the second day of the moon. Now the appearance of Radha deity, beautiful pastime. Sri Jiva Goswami very happily introduced Srinivas to Radha Raman. Srinivas to Radha Raman. The deity of Radha Raman was extremely beautiful, and only the most fortunate people were allowed his darshan. The beautiful expression of Radha Raman became famous throughout the world, and the residents of Vrindavan were delighted at the time of deity's installation. Now I will tell you in brief of how Radha Raman of Gopal Bhatta Goswami became manifest. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami to find Lord Hari in Shaligram Shiv. And Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami told Sri Rupa Goswami about the instruction of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That's why we should be always under the guidance. Even though Gopal Bhatta is exalted, but he is under the guidance. He's been sent by Mahaprabhu to be under the guidance of Rupa and Sanatan. Rupa Goswami is the leader of all, and he has taken shelter, full shelter, praying and serving and all constantly seeking guidance. So that's why we must be in the association of Those advanced devotees and spiritual master and his representatives and seek guidance constantly. You know, see, Govinda Deva was everything to you. Yet is in his desire that you serve him separately. After a few days, Lord Hari became self-manifest on the Saligram Hill. Who can understand the great fortune of Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami by which Radha Raman became self-manifest in this beautiful form? In Radha Raman's beautiful form, the face was like Radha Govinda Dev, chest was like Radha Gopinath, and the feet were like Sri Madan Mohan. The three lords were all manifest in the form of Radha Raman, a combination of that Gopal Bhatta had cherished before the Lord's self manifestation. Sanatana Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, and other Goswamis were very satisfied to see the system by which Gopal Bhatta Goswami served Radha Raman. On the auspicious day of the full moon in the month of Vaishak, Radha Raman was installed on the Simhasan. A great festival was held to mark the installation of the deity. And since then, Radha Raman has become famous throughout the world and as the Lord who is bound by the love of Gopal Bhatta. This is, I think, appearance day of Radha Raman deity is next day of Nasimha Chaturdasi or so, around that time. A great festival. We should observe, see the video. So, this is in Vrindavan, one of the seven temples, famous temples. And Srinivas Acharya's disciple, Gopal Bhatta Goswami is a disciple of Srinivas Acharya, and then also another disciple, Radharaman Pujari, another Radharaman Pujari is also disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. That's how the lineage is continuing there. The worship is going on by that lineage. Mm. The self-manifestation of Radharaman has been described in Sanskrit in Sadhana Deepika. There it is stated, I worship Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, whose life and soul were the lotus feet of Sri Govinda Deva of Vrindavan, but accepted the task of serving him separately according to the instruction of Sri Rupa Goswami. The worshipful object of that separate service was Sri Radharaman. Govinda Deva, who became manifest by the great love of Sri Rupa Goswami, was the same as Radharaman. The reason behind the separate service of Gopal Bhatta has been learned from different reliable persons. I worship that inhabitant of Raja Sri Gopal Bhatta, son of Sri Venkat Bhatta, who was the elder brother of Tridandi Swami Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati. If one can see Sri Madan Gopal with Sri Radhika, Sri Govinda with Sri Vrindavaneshwari, Sri Gopinath with Sri Vishabhanu Kumari, his life will surely be successful. While serving separately, Gopal Bhatta's eagerness increased, and he understood that it was Lord's desire to be served in this separate way. One day, Sri Radharaman wanted to reveal himself to Gopal Bhatta. Understanding the desire of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Radharaman showed Sri Bhatta that he and Gopal were the same being. The intimate associates of Gopal Bhatta performed the Abhishek ceremony of Radha Raman. Thus, the worship of Radha Raman became established. The deity made his own temple and helped Gopal Bhatta Goswami began his worship. Mm. We have briefly described the manner in which Radharaman became manifest. Sri Radharaman was the life and soul of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. While sleeping or awake, he knew nothing but the service of his Lord. Gopal Bhatta Goswami drank the nectar of the beauty of Radharaman to his heart's content. In Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Gopal Bhatta had previously appeared as Ananga Manjari or Guna Manjari. Gaur Gandu Deepika, this has been described by Kavi Karnapur. Uh, being enchanted by the beauty of his deity, Gopal Bhatt decorated the Lord with different flower ornaments according to Radha Raman's choice. While serving Radha Raman, Gopal Bhatta's joy increased moment by moment. He constantly remembered his service to Sri Gaurasundar. He could hardly remain in his composure when he remembered the way he had served Gaurachandra in his own house on the instruction of his father. He became moved by the memory of that service and shed tears profusely while looking at his beautiful Radharaman deity. This Radharaman deity is nothing but Sriman Mahaprabhu. This is described here now. This Radharaman, who was ever bound by the love of Sri Gopal, but Goswami took pleasure in revealing himself in the form of Sri Gaurasundar. He was young and dressed so beautifully that he enchanted the entire universe. His beauty was more exquisite than that of Madan Mohan. Seeing the beauty of Sri Gaurachandra, Gopal Bhatta's heart overflowed with joy. He called out, What have I seen? As he fainted on the ground with tears streaming from his eyes, joyfully glorified Radharaman. Sri Gaurachandra, whatever desire found a place in the heart of Sri Gopal Bhatta would immediately be satisfied by Radharaman. Throughout the world, the wonderful activities of Radharaman, the life and soul of Gopal Bhatta were known. So, and then Srinivas Acharya offered his obeisance to Radharaman, prostrating himself on the ground. Words came rushing to his lips, but he could not utter them due to his perplexed state of mind. Offering himself totally to the lotus feet of Radharaman, Srinivas simply sat and looked at the deity. In this way, we can see Srinivas Acharya also a great devotee actually. So he had a dream. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed almost six aspects of the Vaikuntha. We see that different dhams have been described of Srinivas Acharya's dream. Uh, in his dream, he witnessed beautiful pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The origin of Navadvip was revealed to him. His dream is described as here. The origin of Navadvip. At first, he saw the golden city of Nadia and jewel embossed ghat of river Suraduni. Then he saw the house of Gaurachandra, which was more beautiful than anything found in the place of Indra. In the palace of Indra, he wondered who could have built this extraordinary house, which was surrounded by a golden wall. Perhaps it was Vishwakarma. Prabhu performed his various pastimes in different sections of the house. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Next Vilas. Inside the house, there was this is second Vilas. Inside the house. Inside the house, there was a beautiful flower garden in the middle of which was a temple embossed with jewels. Inside the temple was a beautiful canopy covering a throne bedecked with jewels. Gaurachandra sat on the throne with his two exquisitely beautiful wives, Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya, seated by his side, adorned with gorgeous dresses and ornaments. Millions of maid servants were engaged in fanning them with chamaras, serving betel leaves, offering garland and sandalwood paste. Sri Gaurachandra looked extremely enchanting and in this setting. Now the Kirtan Vilas. Third, Srinivas then awoke but soon fell asleep. More and more, once more again he saw the Sachinandan sitting on another jeweled throne in a different area of his house. The Lord's elegant appearance put millions of cupids to shame. His beautiful face defeated the pride of the moon. By his side was Sri Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar Pandit. Surrounding him stood Vidyanidhi, Gangadas Pandit, Srivas, Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya, and many of these exalted devotees. Even Trimalla, Venkata Bhatta, Prabodhana Sabu, Gopala Bhatta, Raghunath Bhatta, Sanatan, Rupa, Jiva, Bhugarbha, Loknath. Seeing Gaurachandra surrounded by his innumerable associates, Srinivas filled with ecstasy, bowed at the feet of the Lord and his devotees, but suddenly his dream disappeared. Now the fourth Vilas. Divine Vilas. Srinivas became very impatient to see the Lord again and once more fell asleep and envisioned another beautiful portion of the house where the Lord sat upon a jeweled throne. As many servants awaited upon him with the utmost care. Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and other demigods were also there offering words of praise and falling at Lord's lotus feet. Overwhelmed by Prabhu's elegance, Srinivas trembled with emotion. In another portion, fifth one, another portion of our Srinivas observed the Vaikuntha Vilas and his body trembled with excitement. Now the sixth Vilas. He also observed Ayodhya Vilas and Dwaraka Vilas, which made him extremely happy. Observing the Mathura Vilas, he felt very humorous. He saw himself as confident of Sri Radha in Prabhu's Braj Vilas. Srinivas was filled with ecstasy as he observed the dancing performance of Sri Rasamandala. While he was observing the Nikunja Vilas, his dream faded away. He woke up from sleep and saw that it was morning. Overwhelmed by remembrance of his dream, the infinite kindness of Prabhu, it took Srinivas considerable time to control his emotions. Anyone who attentively hears this pastime with utmost respect can obtain the mercy of Gaura Hari. Those who have received the mercy of the Lord can perceive and enjoy the transcendental town of Sri Navadvip, taking the lotus-like feet of Srinivas Acharya Prabhu on my head. I, Narahari Das, take pleasure in writing this. Is describing. In this way, we can understand this most beautiful pastimes of great devotees, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Radharaman deity's appearance and the Srinivas Acharya's dream of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we'll describe Ramachandra Kaviraj. Today's disappearance and then we'll conclude brief description. Ramachandra was illustrious as his parents and his older brother Mahananda. From his very childhood, Ramachandra had a great learning towards religion and used to behave with neighbors from a very impartial point of view. He was a man of high spirits, as beautiful as Madana, the god of beauty. He quickly and easily gained knowledge of all types of scriptures. Observing Ramachandra's unique qualities, intelligent person began to speculate that he might be an incarnate of some deity. By his own will, he had taken birth in Vaidya family and the people thought he was an ordinary person. The Vaishnavas began to think that if he chose the path of Vaishnava, he could get many Vaishnava companions in the future. As time passed, people began to take more and more interest in Ramachandra. I will not describe the circumstances under which Ramachandra became a disciple of Srinivas Acharya, but I would like to explain how he received the title Kaviraj. Sri Paramananda Bhatta Acharya, Sri Jiva Goswami, inhabitants of Vrindavan were all enchanted by the poetry of Ramachandra, and they conferred the title of Kaviraj. Ramachandra Kaviraj was a very qualified man and intimate associate of Narottam Mahasaya. I will discuss the relation between Ramachandra and Narottam later on, but here I am giving it in a nutshell. Kaviraj and Narottam were inseparable, and people used to utter their names as though they were in one person, like Narayan. They appeared in this world to bring happiness to mankind. As brilliant scholars of scripture, they easily defeated the views of the heretics. They were expert in teaching the science of devotion, and their genius was universally accepted. So this is Ramachandra Kaviraj was a great poet, great service, menial service he has done to Srinivas Acharya, and he was a very confidential associate also of Narottam Das Thakur. Both are so close. Because that's how Ramachandra Kaviraj just got married. Was going to marriage in marriage position, and he just heard the Narottam Das Thakur Srinivas Acharya's conversation, and then that so got transformed, and he joined there later on. So, Anurag Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktam jai, Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Prabhupada Avirbhav Maha Mahotsav ki jai, Sri Ramachandra Kaviraj Tirobhav Maha Mahotsav ki jai.